Good evening. I would like to call to order the September 22nd meeting of the Milton School Committee. In order to adhere to our new open meeting laws, I need to inform you that this meeting is being videotaped by Milton Cable. Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll begin by approving tonight's agenda. Are there any additions or corrections or deletions? I believe we're going to, your microphone is on. Ms. Gormley would like to remove the superintendent goals from tonight's agenda, and that will be done at a future meeting. Is there anything else? Okay, great. So we'll accept this as written now. For Citizen Speak, we have John Davis. Please join us to speak on behalf of the Milton Boosters, Milton High Boosters.
Quite a setup. Good evening. As Linda Lee said, my name is John Davis. I think many of you know me, but for those of you who don't, I asked my son, who's a senior here, where the library was in the school. He says, right next to the pool. So I've been walking around looking for that. No, that's not true. I just look like I came out of the pool. I'm here representing the Milton Boosters, who I believe most of you are aware of. It is one of the fundraising arms of primarily the athletic department, and works on behalf of that. And we have our major fundraiser coming up, the Swing for Sports, which is a golf tournament that's going to be held at the Wollaston Golf Course on October the 18th. And we're out here looking around now for support from you and from all of the people watching tonight and of all of the parents. More and more of the landscape of fundraising has changed, and more of the burden is falling on outside factors and now on the Milton Boosters. And as such, this golf tournament represents a major opportunity and a very important opportunity for the boosters and for the whole athletic department. As such, we're looking for golfers. You don't need to be a good golfer to come play. In fact, many people would enjoy going out for the first time on this golf course. It's a beautiful golf course right here in Milton. It will be in full bloom. The date is October the 18th, which is right the peak of the foliage or the peeping season to look at the leaves and follow through. There's quite a bit of nature on the golf course. So even if you've never played before, really, it is a fun day. The entry fee is $175 for the golf. That includes your greens fee, your cart, a box lunch, hot hors d'oeuvres or heavy hors d'oeuvres, and a lot of fun at the reception following the golf tournament right there on the property of Wollaston, where we'll have raffles, auctions, silent auctions, and so forth. Tennis is an alternative for those who don't want to try the golf. I shouldn't say an alternative. Maybe golf is an alternative to those who don't want to try the tennis. But the tennis also takes place on that day on the Wollaston property. Begins a little bit earlier in the day at 9:30 for registration and 10 o'clock for the actual doubles tournament that goes on. Again, you don't need to be a good tennis player to play. You come out, it's a doubles tournament. They'll pair you with somebody of well, the proper ability, whether it's much better than you or you know, whatever, to make it happen. And they actually do some lessons and some stretching, and it's a real fun time. That entry fee is $75, and that also includes the amenities, the reception after, a box lunch, and so forth. So the great news about this whole thing, too, quite frankly, is as part of this infomercial, the Wollaston Golf Course donates the greens fees and the carts. So, and then Curry College supports almost all of the food, in fact, all of the food. So 90% of what you do participate in, or maybe even 100% when we get done, paying the winning golfers off and stuff like that, goes to the athletic program in town and to the boosters. So it's truly an opportunity to support the overall program. It doesn't go to any one. Those who are not familiar with the boosters, it goes to all of the programs within the athletic department. So I would ask you, and I've come tonight to kind of ask each one of you if you can think of someone that would like to play, and maybe even come and play yourself. If you know of a company that might sponsor a hole, and I'll run down those prices again in a minute, but if you can just help us in recruiting. The reception is going to be $35 if they want to just come to the reception after. Come and have a cocktail or a soda with some friends, some hors d'oeuvres, and enjoy the day. It's truly a fun day. Just to digress for a minute, last year we had it in September and it snowed. So we called it off, we postponed it to this date, and it was 77 degrees, sunny, beautiful, and crisp. So we said, we're going to stay with this date. This is a pretty good date. All right, so just a one-time, again, run down the prices. For the golf, it's $175 for a player. To sponsor a hole, it's $250. For tennis, it's $75. The best way to contact us, I'm in charge of the golf aspect of it. My email is jdavis@cahilldavisgroup.com. Cahill Davis Group, there's a website, you can find us. Also in charge of the tennis, and actually two of the very best workers ever around, Cara Russo and Laura Phelan are running the tennis. To contact them, Cara is rkrwgg@comcast.net, and if you forget what that means, just think of her whole family. It's got a letter to do with each one of them. And then Laura at tkoll@comcast.net. So I hope you'll consider helping us out. I hope you guys will consider helping us recruit. And we would appreciate anything from sponsorships to raffle items to auction items and so forth. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, or if any now.
Well, we have just a couple of follow-up things.
Sure.
So I just want to clarify, that's a Monday, right?
It is a Monday, yes.
Monday, the
Yep.
18th. And what time, if people just wanted to come to the reception, what time would that start?
We're scheduling the reception for 4 o'clock. The golf starts at 11. Generally, it takes between 4 and 5 hours to finish the golf. You want to come up before that, the lounge will be open, but the hors d'oeuvres will start coming out about 4 o'clock.
And the cost again for the reception?
$35.
35. And could people just stop in that night if they haven't already made a reservation to come to
absolutely.
the reception? So
We would prefer, obviously, receptions, because we do have to kind of order the food and tie all the things in with our sponsors, but yes.
great.
They
And
can
we'll
come.
put your contact information on the Milton Public School homepage, so
What
on the
we'll
web.
do is, for the viewing public who didn't get those email addresses that want to contribute in any of the varied ways that you suggested, we'll feature that in the front of our webpage.
Perfect.
Because high school athletics really need financially the support of the boosters, and this is your main event. And so, again, for the entire community and every parent at Milton High School in the community that supports athletics, was an athlete, has a child who's an athlete, we'll put it on the front of the webpage, any small or large donation, and we'll give them ways to contact Mr. Davis.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, that's true.
And thank you, John, to you and your committee for all the work that you do to put into this and ongoing throughout the year for the boosters.
Well, thanks so much. It's there's an awful lot of other dedicated people to this overall program, for sure. Too long to mention them all, but they do deserve a big thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Good luck. And I'll go right into the chairman's report. I'd like to begin by welcoming a new member to the school committee group here. We have a new secretary, Ann Cruikshank, who's sitting over there ably taking our notes. We want to welcome you. She's taking over for Charlene Roach, who has moved into Bev Quinn's position, and We know you're going to do a fabulous job, Anna. It's great to have you with us. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to welcome Mary McLaughlin to come up and Margaret Everhart. And as they're coming up, I mentioned at our last meeting about the birthday parties, but you're here to tell us a little bit more, and I actually announced all the open house nights too, so.
Tonight.
Great.
Thanks for giving us the opportunity to speak. This is a happy occasion. So I'm pleased to share the news that the Milton Foundation for Education is 15 years old this fall. And it was created thanks to a lot of people that came before me. And we have this nice birthday cake that we brought tonight with a logo that was shows our little foundation guy there with a birthday cake. And it says Milton Foundation for Education celebrates 15 years of giving. So just to give you a little background for people at home that don't know about the foundation, the Milton Foundation for Education it's separate from the public schools, but we're volunteers in the Milton community. Many of us have children in the schools. And I'm sorry, no one can hear me. That sounds better. The Milton Foundation for Education is made up of volunteers from the community. Many of us have children in the schools. And due to the generosity of many sponsors and donors over the year, we've been able to raise about $2 million for the schools, and that is to support our mission, which is to make possible innovative programs and opportunities that are beyond the reach of the school system's budget. So because of that money that we've raised, some of the things we do, twice a year we have a competitive grants program that's teacher-initiated ideas, things that they'd like to do in the classroom that they want to try out, innovative kinds of ideas. Some of the things that we have sponsored over the years, you may remember the Turner's Pond study. There was the Cunningham's Elm Tree Farm. There used to be a farm of trees next to Cunningham, and they all got sold, I believe, to people in town. There's the Pierce's Incentive Program for Academic Achievement, Milton High's Jazz Ensemble and Concert Band CDs. We helped pay for that. There's so many wonderful grants that we've been able to give over the years. The foundation sponsors the Celebration for Education event every year. This year it will be April 2nd at the Quincy Marriott, Boston. Celebration for Education earmarks funds for a particular department or a particular thing that we want to sponsor that year. We also sponsor the Monster Dash, which raises money for science in the elementary schools, and this year it's a road race, and this year it will be on Halloween. So I'm proud to say that thousands of children have benefited from the money that and the grants that we've given over the years. So in recognition of this milestone, we were inspired to have a birthday celebration at all of the open houses. And during the open houses, we are telling parents to look for the stars. So we have stars on all the different things that we've donated over the years. Each item donated by the MFE has a star on it. And that helps us demonstrate the impact that the MFE has had on the schools. And that goes from kindergarten through high school, maybe even early ed, probably. I think we did buy some early education things. So we support the cooperation that we get from the Milton School Committee. I'm looking at everyone here, and you've all helped in some way over the years. Linda Lee has just left as our school committee representative, and now we've welcomed Mary Kelly. She's our next school committee representative on the board. So that's very exciting. And at all of the open houses, we're serving cake. So we thought it's only fair to have some cake for you guys here. So thank you very much for all that you've done for the schools and And thank you for letting us share our celebration with you here tonight. So thank you very much. And Margaret Eberhard is here to help me serve the cake. She's also on the board.
Great. Well, we can't thank you enough and your whole committee for the countless hours that you put into the Milton Foundation for Education every year that, as you said, benefits every child in all of the schools. And we're so proud and we're so lucky in Milton. I know that our MFE is really an exemplar for other communities that look at opportunities to do fundraising and outreach, and they come to us, they come to you to find out how to do it because you do it so well. So
Thank you. I think it's a privilege for us to be able to serve on it because so many people have done things before us, and we're lucky enough to be involved. I did want to mention two people that have been extremely dedicated to finding out all of the grants that we've given over the years and putting these birthday celebrations together. Laura Conway and Karen DeLuca have done a fantastic job. And also I want to mention some of the businesses in town. The New Bakery Cakes helped us with a lot of these big cakes with the logo on it. Shaw's was also donated some things to us, and Jack Rabbit designed our little logo for us. So don't want to forget those people.
great. So just to clarify before you go, so there is no foundation event. There's no celebration in November. It's going
Not
to
in
be in
November,
April
no.
this year. So mark your calendars for April 2nd.
Thank you.
Great. Ms. Bagley-Jones?
I was at the open house for the high school the other night, and there were stars everywhere. And I ended up my evening in the biotech lab, which was completely funded by the Milton Foundation.
Which Ms. Bagley-Jones
No,
helped.
no, but I'm just saying, I ended
Off
my
the ground.
night in this incredible room after walking through all the classrooms in the building, seeing stars everywhere. It's truly amazing what you've provided for the schools over the years. It's amazing to me, so thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Now we'll have some cake.
Now we'll have some cake, okay. And while they're passing out the cake, I'd ask the school committee members to just look at your school committee calendar. And I just want to address some of these topics and changes that are on here. So I'm going to jump ahead. For tonight's agenda, the topic does include the superintendent's goal, and that will be moved down to after, probably October 20th, after we do our evaluation. And for the next school committee meeting, so just a clarification for those people watching from home, this is a new process for us, this evaluation, due to the open meeting law changes that happened this past year. Previously, we were able to, the process that we went through for our evaluation followed through our policy committee, and the way it was handled was all the school committee members submitted their evaluation to the chair, and the chair compiled the comments and then made a formal presentation. So that's no longer allowed. So we're working through this, and tonight we will hear the superintendent's self-reflection based on the goals that she set up for last year, for this past year. At our next meeting, please, where it says school committee superintendent observation form due to chair, just draw a line through that because that's no longer accurate. But we will have our responses to the superintendent's self-reflection and her performance evaluation. So at that time, between now and then, I would ask the school committee members to do some reflection on Ms. Gormley's presentation tonight so that you come prepared to speak to that at our next meeting, October 6th. We will also share our school committee goals that we established at our retreat last June. And then on October 20th, I will compile all the comments that are made at that meeting on the 6th, and I will give a presentation for the superintendent at that time. Is that clear? Okay. So the other thing that I just want to say is that you'll also notice on October 20th that we have the MASC resolution vote. So we will be receiving that, and we should come prepared for discussion on that night and be prepared to vote. Are there any questions about that? And I do need to say that it's looking like the spring dates after the first of the year need to remain on Wednesdays. I hope that that's okay. Oh, that's good? Great. Okay, so we will change those dates on here. Are there any other changes or comments that people want to make about the calendar? Okay, thank you. And speaking of the MASC resolution vote, we need to send a representative to the conference in order to speak on our behalf. So is there someone that's interested in serving in that capacity, attending the annual meeting and representing the Milton School Committee? They're all backing up, Mr. Fenn. It's a clear path. And I saw a hand, so. You accept that nomination?
Yes, I will.
Okay, great. We'll just take
It's a rookie thing.
It must be a rookie thing. But we're very thankful that you're going
We
to
are very
represent us, and we'll take a vote on that. So I need a motion to accept.
Second.
And second. All in favor of Mr. Dennis Cohane representing us at the MESC conference? In favor? Against? Abstention?
No, I voted in favor.
Oh, you voted in favor. Oh, I didn't see your hand, I'm sorry. Okay. It's unanimous. Thank you. That's all I have to report, but Ms. Gormley, I know you have a big night of reporting here, so I'm going to turn this over to you.
First, I'd like to invite to the table Dr. Patricia Del Val. Pat, would you join us at the table? Welcome, Pat. First, for the viewing public who do not receive my email blast, our Director of Pupil Personnel Services, Jeff Rubin, who has been working with us in his retirement. We've been very fortunate that he's wanted to stay with us in the Milton Public School. He is an extraordinary Director of Pupil Personnel. He served in Worcester. He's respected throughout the state, and I think the public, the parents of the students, the staff would all agree he's done an outstanding job, and he's served the Milton Public Schools, its students, teachers, and this superintendent very well, and the school committee. Mr. Rubin was headhunted, and he came in to see me, and he has been appointed the head of school at Willowbrook in Sudbury, a private special education school. We have the coordinated program review coming up, and so the timing was an issue, but we have prepared for many years for this visit, and the work has been done, and so I said to him, life happens. Life goes on, people move, things change, and this is a strong institution, and as much as we're going to miss him, I wish him well. And so I met with the administrative team, the two gentlemen to my right, and we are indeed fortunate that Dr. Del Val, Pat, worked with us on our mid-cycle report. Bringing you back to Pat did the entire preparation, and it was a flawless mid-cycle, I call it checkup. And now Pat has been preparing, working with every member of the staff. She moves right into the school system, preparing all of the work for our coordinated program review that's coming in October and November. And so we had a lot of options. We looked at staff, we looked at posting, and we had a very talented individual with us who has a background that I'll tell you about in special education and administration, who knows the staff and knows the programs. And so I spoke to Chairman Sheridan and the administrative team. I approached Pat Duval. She gave it some thought, and I'll tell the public and the school committee enthusiastically she agreed to be our interim Director of Pupil Personnel for the year. If I might, Pat, Patricia Del Val started her career in education in Connecticut, receiving her bachelor's and master's degree from Southern Connecticut State University. She taught at the elementary level before coming to Massachusetts, where she earned her doctoral degree in reading from Boston University. In the Quincy Public Schools, Pat taught at the middle level in reading and special education. She was an administrator. She was the director of special education in Quincy, the out-of-district chairperson, the early childhood coordinator, and she retired 5 years as the, and she also served for 5 years as the elementary school principal. Since her retirement, she worked at the Woodward School for Girls as a college counselor and the compliance monitor for the Milton Public Schools. Pat Duvall is very respected in her field, and this is very good news for us. We are not going to, the Milton Public Schools, the special education program, is not going to skip a beat. Right after I told the school committee, the PAC, the parents who chair the PAC wanted to see me, and Nikkei Bradshaw and Mr. Vitti. When I brought Pat in, they said, "Oh, we know you, we respect you." Pat served on the screening committee when we went out twice to fill Mr. Rubin's position, and we were not successful. I would say we had a very, very positive meeting with the parents of the PAC, the leadership of the PAC. I said within the next 2 weeks, after Mr. Rubin leaves, we'll have a reception for all of the parents with children in our special education program, and so that they can connect the name with the face, and Pat can meet them. And Pat Duvall has already hit the road running, and for the viewing public with parents with children in our special education program, again, this is going to be a seamless transition, and we're all going to make it work. But we are very enthusiastic, and I appreciate the support of the school committee and their feedback. And so I wanted you to connect the name with the face, and perhaps you had any questions to ask Dr. Duvall tonight. Pat, welcome.
Thank you so much. We never know what life brings. If I were asked, would I be here a week ago, I would have said never. No, not going to happen. We don't know what life brings. But certainly my, excuse me, my time in Milton, both for the mid-cycle review and at the end of the last complete CPR, has been enjoyable. I've been to the schools. I know many of the staff members, and I have enjoyed all of that. So when the opportunity presented itself, I thought about it a bit and then said, I think it's right. Right for Milton and right for me.
Well said.
Welcome. Great.
Well, we couldn't be happier, and now Ms. Gormley can sleep at night and not have to worry about all of that coming up. But we're not just filling a position, we are bringing in a new valuable member of the team, and we appreciate you
Thank you.
joining us. Thank you.
Welcome, Pat.
Thank you.
The school committee will become familiar faces and names to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Briefly, I want to just remind those viewing that tomorrow night at the Milton High School auditorium from 7 to 8 o'clock, September 23rd, a presentation, Depression Prevention Initiative, working together to enhance resiliency in our students. Milton High School parents are invited, and the public, to a community partnership between Dr. Riley from Children's Hospital, the Director of Depression Prevention Initiative, and the Milton Public Schools. This evening will include a preview of the documentary Break Free from Depression, a part of this year's health curriculum at Milton High School. And it speaks to this school committee that the school committee asked me to just remind the public and parents, 7 o'clock tomorrow night in the Milton High School auditorium, if you're interested in this, what will be a very informative presentation. I was going to speak to Swing for Sports, but Mr. Davis did a better job than I could have. And again, a reminder, we'll put all of that information on the front page of our web. At our last meeting, I referred quickly to our new town accountant, and her name is Amy Dexter. On behalf of the Milton Public Schools, I want to welcome Amy to the position. We work collaboratively. Mr. Gillis has already been over there to welcome Ms. Dexter. She has children in the Milton Public Schools, and I want to recognize her on behalf of the school district. A highlight of tonight's presentation is our MCAS AYP report, and I want to acknowledge our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Personnel, John Phelan, and our elementary English Language Arts Coordinator, and Social Studies Coordinator and Title I Coordinator, the longest title in the district, Martha Sherman, who knows more about MCAS and AYP, I dare to say, than anybody in the state. So she and Mr. Phelan work tirelessly, and they get this information out to our administrators and staff. They have provided, one school committee member called me and said, this is a very involved presentation, but I have to tell you, this is involved data that's changing every single day, and we're going to give you an overview tonight, and then at future meetings, delve further into every aspect of the MCAS and AYP reporting. So I'm going to, I would have turned those lights out for you, Mr. Phelan. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Phelan and Martha Sherman, and then Mr. Schultz is going to, why don't you come up to the table, Jerry? Mr. Schultz is going to be here for a special announcement during the presentation. So again, you have your MCAS presentation, and Mr. Phelan just gave you all a packet of supplemental data. And I will give the individuals in the audience a copy of the PowerPoint and the data.
Okay. Do you need another one? I got it on the computer.
I think it's in the packet.
Thank you.
Maybe you can, I'm not sure. Maybe.
Good evening, everybody.
Don't give that out.
I'd like to welcome you to our
Should I send you?
time of the year where we talk about student achievement in the Milton Public Schools and how we fared on our standardized assessments that we take each year, which is our MCAS exam. We have a presentation for you tonight that transitions the way in which our MCAS and AYP data was presented over the past few years, starting in 2001, and now how the state is going to start to present this data to you by using the growth model. So what we'd like to do for you is to let you know that we will talk about AYP as we have traditionally talked about in the past, so we can transition the public and yourself to from the old to the new. Talk about some of the highlights and challenges that we have in a general way in the Milton Public Schools. We'd like to celebrate one of those tonight, and that's why we brought Collie-Cobb Principal Jerry Schultz here. And then we're going to talk about how we measure student success in the Milton Public Schools, and then how the state is going to start presenting this data to you and to the public starting this year and moving forward, which is the growth model. And then we'll talk about a few more initiatives that we have at the state level that I think people are going to want to start to hear about and know about, which is our Common Core, the standards, and how that impacts some common questions people will have around curriculum and how we assess our students. So, first of all, we're going to get into the old rating system that we have that will be on and has been on each child's report, and we wanted to provide this menu or these labels for you so you knew what they meant before we started to talk about each school. Remember, when you get a report card at home or when we show this information to you in the public, the label of no status is actually the best status you can get. That means that you don't have any issues with the aggregate scores, which means the total scores in your school, nor do you have any issues with your subgroups, which are small groups of students in your schools that that are broken out by the state that we serve. Improvement is the next level down from that, which means that the state says that we need to have more improvement at that school or in one subgroup. We have corrective action, which means over a period of 2 years, a school may or may not have made enough progress. And lastly, we have restructuring. So these are just familiar terms that I want to make sure that everybody knows and understands as we start to look at each school's status that is given to us by the state or that the system has earned. First of all, we want to talk about the Cunningham and the Collie-Cobb. We're going to group our schools and give you the history of the last 4 years of scores and the status of each year. Notice on the top we have Collie-Cobb School. The subject area is English Language Arts. And over the last 4 years, we have 2 bands that we talk about, the aggregate, which is all of our students, average score and scores. And then our subgroup of students, those are in each school a little different, but they include in the Milton Public Schools minority status students, socioeconomic status students, and students on special education plans. So as you can see in this year, in 2010, we have Mr. Schultz's school meeting the AYP standard in the aggregate in English language arts and in subgroups, which means every single child made progress that was appropriate by the national standard of annual yearly progress. Mr. Schultz remains on improvement year 1 because you have to do that for 2 years straight. If you notice in 2009, the scores came back with a no in the aggregate and a no in the subgroup. So Mr. Schultz and his team are vying for 2 yeses again in 2011, and that would put his school at a no status designation. We look down in math, and we have the aggregate, which means the students as a whole did pass AYP, and then we had one subgroup not pass, and that was students who were on IEPs. We're going to get to Mr. Schultz's good news in a few slides now.
And if I might, Mr. Phelan, and so that was real progress from 9. The achievement of those yeses, that was real progress.
It really was. Anytime you can take the aggregate from a no designation all the way forward to a yes, it's absolutely great news. It's a lot of work on behalf of the students and the teachers and the administration in the school, absolutely. The next school that we're going to profile in this in Manor is the Cunningham School. The Cunningham School has no status currently, but this school year, this past spring of 2010 scores did reflect a no in the aggregate in English language arts and in the subgroup. So what we have is, because they have traditionally been yeses and their performance has been good, they still have a no status designation because it takes 2 years of that designation for that possibly to go into an improvement year. So we feel that that's a concern, that the Cunningham School would have an aggregate and a subgroup designation that didn't make AYP, and we can talk further about that as we get our schools in and we go further into the data. Down in math, we did pass in the yes of the aggregate for our scores at the Cunningham School, and there was a no in the subgroup. So obviously, if you just count the yeses and nos as a simple indicator, we have some work to review and look at the Cunningham Elementary School. At the Glover School, similar to the Collicott, in 2009, the Glover School had no in the aggregate in English language arts and a no in subgroups. An incredible turnaround as at the Collicott, where the scores were totally flipped, and the students in every subgroup and all the students in the aggregate did pass the AYP English language arts exam. In math, they did as well. It's a great news story. Yes, Ms. Kelly?
Can I just ask, just to get some clarity, so AYP is not necessarily a score for an individual,
Correct.
but it's a progress towards the goal of everyone being proficient in 2014.
Correct.
And there's a sort of set step function that we're supposed to attain each year to get there.
We have a slide that outlines that
Okay.
history from the beginning of AYP, so everybody can kind of get how that works up to a progression in 2014.
And what's being reported on here is grades 3, 4, and 5 in the particular ELA or math.
That's correct.
Okay, all combined.
Correct. So students take the MCAS, and that's a great point to bring up. Students take MCAS exams in grades 3, 4, and 5 only. And then all students take exams in the middle school, 6, 7, and 8. And then at the high school, it's only some tests for 9th graders and some tests for 10th graders. So in math, we have another good news story at the Glover School, again, with students in the aggregate and subgroups making it. So you wonder why they improvement year 1, and not to be repetitive, but it takes 2 years to get those yeses in both categories for you to move on to a no status indication. The Tucker School had a great, I'm going to jump down to math, had great news where they flipped their whole group over in math. All the students in the aggregate and in all subgroups passed the math AYP, which was incredible news, and they made great strides to do so. However, in English language arts, we had the opposite. So we're really working through the data. Principal Uretsky is peeling back the data and the student progress in the teaching to find out where she can find the reason behind some of those performance indicators that bring us to a no in the aggregate and a no in the subgroups. Pierce Middle School is a good news story. Pierce Middle School, who has always met in the aggregate in a positive way in AYP, and has struggled in subgroups, mainly the subgroup in special education. After a lot of work by Principal Jett and his team on his subgroups, they have a designation of yes in the aggregate in math and yes in all subgroups inclusive of students in IEPs. And remember now, the middle school tests 850 students. Each of the other schools may only test about 220 students. So Mr. Jett takes every child in the district. That's every special needs child, every child who has English as a second language, every single child. And it is great news to watch that math score in the area of special education, students of color, minority students, and students socioeconomic status. Every child moved forward, and that's great news. The ELA, ironically, the students on IEPs had always been the concerned subgroup for us, and they passed, which is great news. But we fell back in the subgroup of African American minority students, which we had, that subgroup had been passing for many years in a row. So we will look into that data, we will scratch that, and Mr. Jett and his team will be looking as to what strategies are needed, and he will be presenting to this group as well at a later date.
May I interrupt you, Mr. Phelan? This initiative, we talk about measurable goals. To me, this is one of the largest accomplishments in the school system. This school committee, the warrant committee, the entire town, the PAC, the parents involved in special education, this was an issue. And Mr. Phelan deserves a tremendous amount of credit, having been the principal and as the curriculum director, working with James Jett, every teacher at the Pierce School. This is a huge accomplishment. We have the warrant committee over the last 5 years understand the needs of the Pierce School. They've come up with, and this school committee and the warrant committee work together to target personnel. You put your personnel where your needs are. And so to have the special ed group make AYP at the Pierce School, all of the children, for me, I have to tell you, in this whole presentation, the Pierce achievement is huge. And those teachers, I've seen the best professional development that I've ever seen in my career at the Pierce School. And John Phelan, James Jett, and every single teacher at that Pierce School, and those students who owned those scores and the support of their parents, this is huge. And for me, as your superintendent, when you see the yeses and you see you know that the curriculum's there and the instruction's there and the teachers know how to have every student achieve. But for this at the Pierce, I have to tell you, many a warrant committee meeting we all went to, and we talked about the needs of the Pierce, the needs in special education. Would you give us the financing for 2 more teachers so that we could do the inclusion model and we could give double math and double language arts? Again, the Pierce School, John Phelan, James Jett, and all those teachers put a lot of work into that. And to me, all these scores are important, every child, but to me, those Pierce scores are really significant.
Thank you, Mary.
We had if I just might end, we had the PAC here many a night about making children with in the special ed program, making AYP. So this is an accomplishment.
Can I just ask, any of the co-taught classes have made it through to Pierce at this level?
No, this test is spring of 2010. The first co-taught model group is now in 6th grade. However, just as a backdrop, the Pierce has team teaching in grades 6, 7, and 8, which is the middle school version of the co-taught, and has been doing that for about 3 years. So we're really excited through Jeff Rubin, the teachers who are special educators, our regular educators, the parents, the students. They all worked really hard to implement the team teaching model at the Pierce that we believe really was the game changer in terms of exposing kids to the curriculum that they were responsible for and accountable to in terms of AYP and MCAS, and challenging them, and every student absolutely rose to that challenge and achieved. And it's great news for all the students and the parents, and we are thankful for the warrant committee support, the school committee support, and the leadership of James Jett. And ironically, people like Karen Spalding, who's now at the Cunningham, and Stephanie Nephew, 2 former Pierce folks, and Anna McReynolds, it's a great team at the Pierce Middle School. They do a great job.
And you leading them.
Scores that we have at the high school, the high school got its first no last year, and they have been a series of yeses in the aggregate and subgroup for year in and year out. Ironically, the score in the subgroup in 2009 was for students who are minority status students, and so Dr. Drotta focused heavily on those students in math and English. And in the math scores, you notice that all subgroups in the aggregate made annual yearly progress. And the subgroup in English language arts changed to low-income students. So I think one of the achievements, along with Jerry Schultz's Collycott staff, the high school did have a very clear focus last year of working with those students, identifying, finding out what the needs were, adjusting the curriculum, looking and meeting with students, providing mentoring and instruction. And it's really was a great showing of when you focus your resources and your energy on, and when you can do it on just a targeted subgroup and turning it around in 1 year, he will take that same enthusiasm to his subgroup of socioeconomic status students. So we're very pleased that they had that success. Looking at the district summary for grades 3 through 5, we do have subgroup issues at the elementary level 3 through 5. We want to make sure that we address those. That's an aggregate view of the entire system. In 6 through 8, we did have a collective yes in subgroups. And in 9 through 12, we have to deal with the subgroups for African American, Black, low income. So that's just a district perspective in English language arts. In math, we do have subgroup issues in special education from a general view across the district. And at the middle school, the last subgroup that we did not address, we have to address some low-income students 6 through 8, and the 9 through 12 is clean at this point in time. These are overarching district-wide scores and designations.
But there's no status to those groupings?
Right.
It's just part of the way they do the scoring or whatever?
Correct, yeah. So what we'd like to do, and so so this is the district status that would be up on the website. These are the exact, for the public at home, to go to the DESE website and look up Milton Public Schools and look up test scores and look at the spring scores. This is the exact information that you will receive on the web as well. So we are, as a district, no status in English language arts and no status in math, which is the highest designation that you can get. So just a quick review, and as we had done last year, each school will come in front of you to talk about their school improvement plan and what they plan on doing this year, overall plan, influenced by some of the scores that they have received in the spring 2010 MCAS scores. Their school improvement plan will not change very much because we know some of the issues that we need to work on. We have initiatives in place, and you really want to keep those initiatives moving forward and making sure that they're making progress and doing what they ask you to do. But some of the highlights that we have, in the first highlight, and the reason why we have Mr. Schultz here, is the Collycott School made AYP in the aggregate in all subgroups and ELA, and has an and in ELA, and it has an accommodation from the state. Any school, in only 189 of the several thousand in the school district, only 189 were recognized by the state as having high growth in both English language arts and math over a 2-year period. And we'll show you exactly how that came out from the new growth model perspective. We're going to use Mr. Schultz as an example, and it's a great example. His school had high growth for 2 years in a row, and this is the new mechanism by which the state will measure our students and our schools in our district. And they gave out these accommodations to only 189 schools in the entire state. We are absolutely ecstatic and proud of the Collycott staff, Mr. Schultz. This isn't a 1-year deal. This is 2 consecutive years. You have to maintain this high growth, and it's just great news on behalf of the district. Congratulations. And we'll show you the exact stats in that on the next slide. The Pierce Middle School Special Education Subgroup is great news in math and ELA, and the aggregate scores that they have always brought forward. As Superintendent Gormley stated, there is lots of good work as well going on at the Pierce Middle School, and they made some big gains this past year. The Glover School to totally turn around the AY standing of English language arts in the aggregate and getting every student and all subgroup students, every student, which great news in English language arts. The high school, as I said out loud, doing a great job in targeting the one subgroup this year. We're making progress in that one subgroup, which is good news. private school, making progress not only in the whole school in that, but also in all the subgroups and that's great news. Challenges. First of all, from a global standpoint, our challenge is to have yeses in every single column. We want yeses, if that's our measurement, in the aggregate and in every subgroup at every school and throughout the district. That's the goal. That's the overarching goal.
Change his microphone.
We
Can
are.
you stop just a minute?
Sure.
You want to just give me this microphone?
I know that Mr. Lovely always had the issue with the microphone. Did he call you on his cell phone and tell you that he to speak into the microphone? We are very happy that at the district level, we are moving towards all yeses. If you want a concrete measurement of how the system's doing, you can just look at in the aggregate and in the subgroups, how we're moving the district forward at each school and across the district. We are addressing the specific grade level curriculum and student achievement needs at the building and grade and department level. And that's work that we do before school starts at our retreat at Curry College, and our work with teachers before school starts at our 2 professional days, and we'll continue through our professional development and our professional development day this October 8th, which is just in a few weeks. We get together very clearly at the teacher level and at the coordinator level and the principal level to go through students' scores, curriculum adjustments, questions that they got right and wrong, types of questions that they got right and wrong. So the public, I know we say this every year, but they should really understand that we scrutinize this data down to how many kids got a 2 or a 1 on the open response question in grade 4 math, and are we addressing that problem? Do we have enough time that we're dedicating to poetry? Are the goals that we have for our students in line with the curriculum and the expectations, and what is the implementation of our curriculum? What is the teaching that we need to improve, and the mechanisms by which we have our students engage our students? So that work happens every year and all year in the Milton Public Schools. Challenges very concretely is the change in scores, the abrupt change in scores at the Cunningham School. We'd like to look at what are some of the things that we're working on at the Cunningham, make sure that we're all on the same page with our curriculum. It certainly wasn't for a lack of the students working hard and the teachers working hard, but we will delve into that data and find out some information that we need to explore and make improvement on. The Tucker School, even though they made great growth in math, we want to find out why their language arts scores weren't as successful, because they had that success the year before. They made the aggregate and subgroup in English language arts. So why did they flip into not all students making that progress? And so we know all kids can learn, and we know at every school all kids can learn, so we're looking into those issues. And lastly, we have great scores for our science at the high school, which is our end game, but we did have some scores in science that we always want to review. It's not a testable subject that they hold us to in AYP right now, but we really feel it's an important aspect of what we want to keep track of as the new science exams have rolled out over the last few years. So, good news story, Collycott School, Jerry Schultz.
One second.
Sorry, I don't mean to
I was
interrupt.
just introducing him. It was just
I
like
know.
there's going to be a spotlight coming down.
Just of any of the designations that the schools are in, does that require any additional reporting to the state? I seem to remember in years past that we had to fill out this whole, action plan type of document, send it into the state. Didn't know whether that has gone away or whether some of the schools reported on are required.
No, you're absolutely right. It starts with schools that are Title I status, and we only have one in Milton Public Schools, which is the Tucker. They had to send a letter to their parents notifying them of their AYP designation, and under the law and policies of the state, parents would have had the choice, or did have the choice to change schools if they would like to, or access any tutoring through state vendors that we have to allow them to do, and we actually have Title I funds to pay for that. James Jett and Marcia Uretsky do have to keep track. They don't have to report to the state in any formal way, but they have to keep a portfolio of their action steps and their action plans, which basically we use our school improvement plans. Theirs is in a little more detail. The state does not need to receive a document from the schools, but they need to have one on file so they can demonstrate the changes in structure or instruction or in curriculum that they have made to improve student scores.
Great, thank you.
Jerry Schultz. Yeah, there you go. The designation that the Collycott received was that they actually made high growth um, 2 years in a row in the aggregate of 60 percentile points or higher. And we're going to show you what that looks like, because we're going to show you now and transition into what the student growth model looks like. And this will be the new way in which our Department of Education will rank our schools and measure our achievement. So Mr. Schultz, for 2 years in a row in ELA and math, 2009 and 2010, made significant growth, and significant is anything over 60 or over. Moderate growth or appropriate growth is between 40 and 60, and you'll see the charts. And weak growth would be anything from 0 to 40. So the line that they draw is anything above 60 in over a 2-year period. So only 189 schools have made growth in English language arts and math at a growth percentile of 60 or higher in the entire state. So that is absolutely a great accomplishment by the Collycutt School. 2010, the AYTP participation rate, they also rank you in, did everybody take the exam? And what was their attendance? There's other pieces to the equation. And they obviously met all those goals, and they carried the same school code. This is the technical, is it the same school, is it the same kids? That's the technical part of the process, and obviously the Collycutt School has always been the Collycutt School, and they did bring all these students forward. So what they're saying out loud is this the same group of guys last year as it was this year? And for 2 years in a row, they had good scores and at a very high growth rate. And so this is a great success and a great honor. From a table view or just a statistical point of view, you can see up in the box in 2009 in ELA they scored a growth level of 62.5%. In math they scored an achievement level of growth of 68%. In 2010 they were right on the line with 60 in English language arts and 65 in math. So what the state is saying, that growth level each year of every student averaged together in the aggregate gives the school its growth model progress or rate. We are going to go over the growth model with you as we go through the next part. So we are excited to say that if you look at the aggregate in participation rate and attendance, obviously our students all come to school, they all participate in the MCAS, but this is another way in which the state views this accomplishment. Did everybody participate in the exam, and was everybody at the exam? So we are congratulating the Collycutt School as being recognized as one of 189 schools across the district and across the state for this great growth. So I think it's great news for the Collycutt, and I congratulate Jerry Schultz. Absolutely.
My name has been mentioned many times this evening, but I really would like to reach out and thank my faculty. They have worked so hard, took the status from last year seriously, looked at strategies, looked at individuals, and just put a little bit more oomph into it. Could I write a book on how we were successful? Absolutely not, but I just know that they worked very hard, very professional. The support of the parents is huge. We were able to do a lot with our special education students thanks to John and Jeff Rubin and starting inclusion in the class, and we saw that some of those language-based students some of them actually achieved proficiency. So it was a district effort and a Collycutt community effort, and I'm extremely proud of the kids and the faculty. Thank you.
And me, if I might, Mr. Schultz, I said to Mr. Schultz for him to tell his staff, so he brought them all together, and I emailed him and I said, what'd they say, what'd they say, what'd they say, because there's a lot of pride in these teachers, and he said they applauded. And so, you know what, Jerry, this is a lot of hard work on the part of the teachers, and school committee members called me and said, this is a lot of data, this is a lot of information, and but the teacher in the classroom is the one making the difference, and applause to your teachers. This is an achievement. And so we were just sitting here. I wish that we did have the number of communities. I'll make a guess. There are 375 school districts. 307, how many?
351.
351. And so let's say there's an average of 10 schools in every district. Maybe that might be high.
Yeah, that's high. But
You
some
think-
have hundreds.
Go with
so-
five.
Some have hundreds.
So I think if you.
So I don't know what the number is, but I think it's 189 out of 3,000 schools. Jerry, all the charter schools are involved? So I think, Jerry, but we'll find out for the viewing public, but I think you're 189 one of 189 being recommended for this out of 3,000, but we'll check the number.
We need a new banner.
Congratulations.
Yes,
And
a
it
banner
takes
would be
the
nice.
instructional leader, and that's the principal. Congratulations, Jerry.
Well done, Jerry.
Thank you.
Getting to the reason why we have the growth model and what the state is moving towards goes back to what Member Kelly said earlier. If you notice, the No Child Left Behind Act went in place in 2001, and the goal was to have everybody proficient or advanced by 2014. So we feel that we have made great progress over these years, as you can tell by one of the bar graphs that we'll show you later on, which demonstrates how many of our students are at proficient or advanced already. We are reaching that ceiling where we're getting so many students up to the proficient and advanced level. What this shows us is that we're getting down to that getting kind of water out of a rock point, where I think as a state that they're really saying out loud that we need to change the mechanism by which we measure student growth, not base it on groups of kids and how they did against another group of kids, but start to measure how did I do last year and how did I do through a school year and how did I do this year. It's really about, did every student make progress? Did every individual student move forward in the Milton Public Schools or in the state? So the growth model gives us that ability, and kind of what we've been asking for as a town, that we want to look at cohort data, we want to look at students performing against themselves. Are they growing? Are they getting better? And so even though the growth model is new, we feel it's a great step forward into assessing truly our students making progress in our schools at the level that they're learning the previous year to now the level that we had them for 1 year. What does it look like? And they keep building on that. So it's fairly complicated, but what we want to stress to the public is that we feel it's great that the state is recognizing that students are being measured against how well they're doing against their performance from the previous year, and we're measuring apples to apples for each child and then each school.
This is the trajectory of the state set targets that students have to obtain in those two areas. So if you look at 2009 and 2010, there's a level year for those 2 years, and the state target set was 90.2 in ELA and 84.3 in math. You see that next year in 2011, that target jumps substantially to 95.1 and 92.9. So then making that goal of getting those points based on their MCAS scores so that our AYP number reaches that target gets more difficult the closer we get to 2014. So our struggle is to work harder and better to move all of our students out of warning and up into needs improvement and beyond to proficient and advanced. So we have a lot of work to do, and it's not just 1 year to 1 year, it's every year, all the time.
And lastly, before we get into the growth model, I had provided handouts in the school committee's packet that they have seen before, but basically it's the backup of the MCAS data that we traditionally present, but it's also a reminder that MCAS and AYP is only one piece of what we strive to do well in. Our students are student athletes, they're student musicians, they're student performers, they're students who are out in the community. We measure them by their participation rate in activities and sports. We measure them by their SAT scores, their PSAT scores, their AP participation in AP scores, their graduation rate, and their college acceptance rate. Those are all key indicators for our student success. So to demonstrate that to the public, we have that data. We provided it for you in this folder. Again, MCAS is just one indicator of what we feel the Milton Public Schools can do. And if you look at, just as a quick slide, the 10th grade 3-year look at our students in their rate of reaching proficiency in advance over 3 years is at a very high rate. This is only proficient in advanced students, but if anybody read the Patriot Ledger about a week ago, they outlined every single district, and they outlined every district alphabetically and said how many students passed MCAS this year. They count needs improvement as passing. We have never counted needs improvement as passing. We think that we have a higher bar than that. If you included our needs improvement students in that bar graph, we would be at about 93 to 95% in our English language arts and our math, and I'm not sure exactly what the science number was, but we hold the bar at the proficient and advanced level but we have what we feel very high numbers of students each year making proficient in advanced. So Martha is going to take you through the growth model, which if we keep hitting everybody with this information, little by little, we will all become proficient in understanding it.
Or advanced.
Or advanced. But we won't accept these improvements.
Wow.
Or failing.
Big shoes to fill. The growth model, and I particularly like this slide because it is a puzzle. It's puzzling. It's a new way to look at information. It's tricky. It has a lot of nuances that we're not used to looking at. So what I did was try to compile the best information that we had at this time to try to explain it in a concrete way that you could wrap your heads around it. I've been swimming in this since August, so I hope I convey the information. The growth model is going to offer us a more complete picture of student performance. Since 1998, we've had the MCAS, and that measures achievement against the grade level standards. And students are given a score of advanced, or at the third grade level, above proficient. Proficient, needs improvement, warning, failing, and failing is the 10th grade score. And students also get a score of 200 to 280, which is your scaled score. Now we are introducing the growth model. And the growth is going to measure how much a student has progressed from year to year relative to his or her peers. And those are the students within the test score points. The growth is going to be described as higher growth, moderate growth, or lower growth. And you're going to have a growth percentile number from 1 to 99%. And having both of those measures, looking at achievement and growth over time, is going to give us a better sense of student performance. So what we have to remember is that each student's rate of change is compared to other students with a similar test score history, and those are called the academic peers. This is where it gets really tricky, but I have a slide coming up that I hope will enlighten you. The rate of change, again, is expressed as a percentile. So let's look at an example. If we were to look at this young lady's scores, 2 years ago in grade 5, she obtained the scale score of 230. Last year in grade 6, she obtained also a 230 on the grade 6 score. Based on this score history, if we don't look at this year's yet, she's going to be grouped with students across the state that had the same test scores. So she's grouped with peers that also had the scores in the last 2 years of 230 and 230. That gives her the pool. This year in grade 7, she received a 242. When looking at the state results, the students in that pool receive scores between 218 and 248. So if we look at that, that's the range of scores for this pool of students, 218 to 248. Her score, 242, falls at the higher range. So she would have a growth score that is closer to the top of this, therefore has a higher growth score. If that score was to fall closer to the 218 score, her growth would be lower. If it was to fall in the middle, it would be moderate growth. Mm-hmm. The growth is expressed as the percentile, as I said, and these are the ranges where it falls. The state median is always going to be 50. And this dot doesn't represent anything in particular on the graph, but I wanted the slide to show you how it falls. So we look at moderate growth is between 40 and 59.
So anything to the left,
Higher growth is a score of 60 to 99. And lower growth is a score between 1 and 39.
So if your score actually goes down, we're still considering
Hold
that
that
growth?
question.
Okay.
That does come
I have a
up.
question before you leave there. So Mr., you can tell me to wait too. Mr., the Collycott, in English, Language Arts, and Math, for 2 years in a row, using this growth model, ranked higher for their school. So they were in the higher band above the 60 for English, Language Arts, and Math 2 years in a row. That's how they
And
got
I'll
this
explain
commendation.
how the growth model does apply to schools, it applies to grade levels, and applies to the district as well. So I'll explain how all of that falls into place.
And
But
the
yes,
child.
the higher growth. Okay? So what we have to remember, it can be reported by district, growth can be reported by schools, by grades, by subgroups, and of course, individual child. The growth for groups is a median student growth percentile. So all of the scores are grouped together, and the median is that middle point where half score above and half score below. And that is considered the median growth percentile for that school. So Collycott's median growth percentile was the 60. A school's would be everybody added together. A grade level, which we'll show you in a slide further, is different, okay? Your growth distribution charts is just another way of showing that. It's going to show you the number of students in those bands, how many, what percent reach high growth, what percent medium, what percent low. So some of the key concepts you have to hold on to is a student can achieve at a low level but grow quickly at a higher level, or the opposite. A student can achieve at a higher level but not grow at a higher level. Because again, it's dependent on the group that of the pool of students at that score point and where that test falls. And each student is compared only to their statewide academic peers. So as we saw in the chart, they're only compared to people who had the scores 2 years prior that match. And that gives them their group. All students, though, have the potential of growing to the first or 99th percentile. Again, if you think about those groups, it's going to be different depending on the subject, depending on the grade, and depending on the year. And growth is not given for grade 3 students because there's no test history. Grade 3 is the first year that they take the test, so there's nobody previous to them to compare it to. So growth is only reported 4 through 8 and grade 10, and ELA and math. The percentile is calculated on the change in achievement. You saw the range. It's different from norm referencing where the scores are assigned to that curve. So you have to, that's a different way of looking at it. Yep. Do you want me to do this?
There it is.
Okay. This is an example of the district growth chart. The circle size is dependent upon the number of students in the test group. So we can click it, John. This line is at the median of the students who are at above or proficient. So 50% is the middle. So you see all of our schools are above the median, and if you look at the chart below, at the above or proficient, all of our groups fall above that. So achievement-wise, if you could click, John, again. This bar shows the growth. If you read the graph across, the 40 to 60 is that moderate growth range. To the left of that is the lower growth. To the right of that is the higher growth. So the goal is to have all of your schools in that top right-hand quadrant. If you look at Collicott's bubble, they had 76% of their students in above, at proficient or above, and their growth was at 60%. Tucker School, another great news story, they had 60% at above and proficient, but their growth was at 78%. So they made outstanding growth, even though they're similar at the amount of students at a proficient or above.
So taking Collicott as the example.
Yep.
This would be reflective of grades 4 and 5 who took the test last year as compared to the previous year, or?
This is just themselves, just district now. So that you
Okay.
get the growth percentiles for all of those
Individual?
groups
The group,
and put them all in a line,
yep.
and it's the median point of that whole group. So their median student growth percentile is 60.
For grades 4 and 5
Right.
last year.
How am I doing? You're not glazing over yet.
No, this is good.
It's
great.
Well, this is going to
Okay.
be sent out to parents, so we should have given a pre-test, a post-test. We should-
Yep. So the next slide shows math, the same thing. It's all of our schools. The size of the bubbles reflects the size of the test group. Your median for a percent of students in proficient and advanced. Your moderate growth bar. And if you see here, Collicott, again, has 74% at or above proficient, and their growth is 65%. And if you want to look at Tucker, Tucker has 62% at or above proficient, and their growth is 80%. So, outstanding growth at Tucker.
So it's interesting, the public probably can't read this on the camera, but John or Martha, that lower right quadrant, if your school fell in that quadrant, that would indicate higher growth, lower achievement. The quadrant to the lower left, you would have low growth, lower achievement. Top left, lower growth, but high achievement. Our goal is to have all of our schools in higher growth and higher achievement. And then the second indicator here is the highlighted purple band, the state is calling moderate. You want to be in that band where we all want to be is the higher growth, higher achievement. As high as we can in that quadrant.
Moving to the right. And up.
And this is an example of the chart that indicates for a grade 4 class growth broken out. And this shows the percentage of students at grade 4 at each school and what their growth was. How many of them achieved very high growth? How many of them achieved high growth or moderate growth or low growth or very low growth? So if you look at Collicott again, 4th grade, they're the ones that had 31% achieved very high growth. And the number at the bottom is 27 students. So the number at the bottom is the raw number, the percentage is at the top. You look at Cunningham, they only had 10%, I think that, 16 need new glasses. And the bar's down to 20% very low growth. Glover, 28%, Tucker, 27%, and the numbers at the bottom are those moderate, high growth bars. So that's another visual showing you the percentage of students and how their growth fell out by class.
So if you're new to the school,
Growth is not presented unless we have 2 years of data.
okay, so this is reflective of people who are, students who have been in these schools for at least 2 years. That,
Yes, unless we have Sims data that pulls the test in from another district.
Which that happens. If you're in another public, good question, Ms. Kelly. If
Yeah.
you're in the public schools here and you're in the 8th grade, 2 years ago you were in another public school school district, your data
that's
follows
still
you.
you, okay,
And that's a whole nother presentation that our staff went to this week.
I bet.
Okay.
So, so what parents will get on
Microphone.
tomorrow,
Mic-
Thursday, tomorrow, Thursday, September 23rd, we will be mailing out each individual student report card that the state has given us. We have a copy that we file in the student's folder, and we send this copy to you. The first page has a letter from the Commissioner of the Elementary and Secondary Education, Mr. Chester, a little bit of information explaining what this is inside. We have the traditional individual student information here. We have some growth model data that they provide here because they are introducing and transitioning the data in the report card to the growth model. And then on the back, they actually give item analysis data for the test that the student had taken. So when we look at one, this is a copy of a child's growth model. As you can see, it's all the similar framework that we're all working with this percentile of 0 to 99, with between the range of 40 and 60 being moderate and anything beyond 60 being high growth. So this child had a 62% growth this year. So he's growing at a high level. The school itself was at 62, so he actually matched the school. This was, I think this was a Collycott student. And the district, in general, was growing at a 58%. So the district itself was in the that moderate growth level right on the beginning of the high growth area. So it allows the parent to see where their child achieves in terms of their growth, where their school is in terms of the growth, and where the district is in one snapshot graph. It has that for both English, language arts, and math. So just as we used to use the bar graphs all the time that parents got used to, this is the new mechanism that they'll be using, or the infrastructure to put all the scores for the individual student, the school, and the district in, and it is the student growth model.
So John, can I just ask a question about that? So you're saying this is a Collycott student, or just pick a school?
Correct.
When you compare them to the district, is that just the other elementary schools, so it's all the elementary schools together? So if you had a high school or middle school student, the school and the district number would be the same?
Correct. Are there any questions about the report card?
And you can see, as I highlighted before, it's different for English language arts and math, because it's 2 different subjects. So the pool is different, the scores are different, so it's tricky. It's going to be tricky to try and get used to looking at it in 2 different ways.
So the state is now talking about some new initiatives that we will be updating you on throughout the year. First of all, we're going from AYP to the growth model, which we spent a lot of time tonight trying to give you the first wave of information. We spoke about this at our last meeting, but the Common Core is another initiative, and how that compares to our state standards in Massachusetts, and how that process will evolve over the year. And actually, I think a lot of people were asking questions about the MCAS. What's the future of MCAS? So we just wanted to give you some quick shots on some of those questions. First of all, the Common Core has been adopted by the state of Massachusetts. It was led by the Massachusetts state frameworks. I think the state has done well nationwide and was used as a model. There is a period of time where there's going to be review this year on the Common Core in its relation to the Mass frameworks. And the curriculum review and revision going forward will include Common Core standards by 2012 and 13. So there's a lot of talk now as to the flexibility that we can have with our own frameworks at in Massachusetts. In the Common Core, in the law, there is a little flexibility to shift the curriculum in certain directions to make it unique or customized to the state of Massachusetts. So we actually, I believe, Dr. Spalding is on one of those review teams. Will we still have MCAS? I think that if you were down the Cape over the summer and just clicked on the news once, and you saw a lot of this talk, you might think that there might not be MCAS in the future. The answer is yes, we will have MCAS or some form of standardized assessment moving forward. The assessment system will be aligned to the Common Core over a period of time, and throughout this process, Massachusetts will still administer the MCAS. Lastly, next steps for us is that we will have each school present to this body their individual scores and school improvement plans throughout the fall. As we stated earlier, progress reports from the state, or AYP report cards, will be mailed tomorrow. Parents should get them on Friday or Saturday. And we will introduce our teaching staff internally to this new process as well on our October 8th Professional Development Day. So parents will be bringing their AYP report cards to maybe parent conferences in November. We want to make sure our teachers are aware, because this is new to all of us, that they can explain the growth model and what that means for every individual child. And that will take place on October 8th. We want to remind everybody that we do have a lot of things that we measure our students by in terms of assessment. This is a repeat slide, but I want everybody to keep in mind it's about AP, it's about the high school, graduation rate, where kids go to school, SAT scores, and all the great things that our high school does. And we have to remind everybody that Milton High was in the top 6% of all high schools, and it's actually the top half of the top 6% of all high schools. So of the 1,600 schools that were recognized across the nation, we were about 774. I think I put that data in your packet. So we are ranked extremely high across the country in our high school achievement based on a lot of these indicators that we talked to tonight. So we feel the end game that we produce for our parents in terms of its high school product is outstanding and recognized by Newsweek magazine. So thank you very much.
Nice job. So I'm sure we have questions. Mrs. Kelly?
Just given the introduction of the whole growth model, and that it is rather complex, and that our typical teacher conference is about, what, 10, 15 minutes tops? Is there a way to maybe have sort of some forums at each of the schools so that we could just, educate parents if they want to come in, ask questions or whatever, so that they can understand this, rather than, I think, addressing it at a teacher conference is great, but I think it may take up a lot of the time just getting to the basics of,
Right.
How you understand it. So just wondering if that
Principals
might
do make AYP presentations. They do present their MCAS data at PTOs and at the site councils and things. And they have been talking about trying to get this information presented in those venues. I've been emailing them the presentations that, as they come up through the Department of Ed, to use in their presentations. There's some quick, simple ones where I took some of the data from, just making it easy for parents to understand. So that is in the plans.
And just as an FYI, on the DESE website, you can actually click on a link and you can actually watch a video, and we're going to let our teachers know where that is for them to watch. But it is a quick 4-minute video about what these scores mean and how they're derived and what it means as a parent and as a student and for your school system. So there's going to be a lot of support out there that will direct parents to.
Great. Maybe we could put that link on our website as well as a part of this presentation when it goes up. That would be helpful for parents to see as well, I'm sure.
And I've also included in your packet about a 3-page Q&A about growth model that we will put that link up as well. So the parents will be able to go to the video, and we'll give them the link for the question and answer page that you have in the back of your packet.
And to Mrs. Kelly's point, Mr. Phelan's going to work with all of our teachers and staff so that they understand this new model on the Professional Development Day, so that if they hear it from John Phelan and they understand it, they'll be able to, when a parent comes in and puts the report down, we have equipped our teachers. I reflected back 10 years ago, working with teachers about MCAS and wanting them to be able to explain the data to parents. So John Phelan will work with all of the staff to explain this data and have them own the data so that they can translate it for the individual parent.
Glenn?
And with the growth model of the MCAS coming in, along with the change to Common Core standards, it makes even more sense to look at some sort of growth model like this, because people ask about the MCAS. Next year's MCAS is based on the same standards as this year's was, the 2010 to 11. But in 12 and 13, it's going to be hybrid standards into the new Common Core till by 2014, the MCAS will be built on the Common Core standards. So if the MCAS is moving from year to year, you can't reasonably say, well, you did X on it this year and Y on it next year when it's a different test. So the growth model becomes the only reasonable way to measure growth on a model that's changing in front of you. Given that we don't have the Common Core yet, it's a little early to wonder what the MCAS is going to look like in 3 years, but I'm sure we'll be keeping on top of it because it's going to be a moving target.
I just have a quick question. You, so at the beginning of the presentation, you were talking about making AYP, adequate yearly progress. And now we're talking about growth models. So at what point are they going to stop talking about adequate yearly progress? Or will that always be there? It will just meld in with the growth model?
There will be both for a while.
Okay.
Adequate yearly progress is in No Child Left Behind. That's a federal our overarching piece for No Child Left Behind. So that is the state's mechanism of answering the No Child Left Behind requirements. But the growth model is going to fold into that as another method of looking at progress for schools. So it will be a combination, is what they're telling us at this point, of both.
So by the year 2014, all students are supposed to be proficient. And are you hearing that there's any talk about extending that AYP line further than 2014?
The thing that I always hear at conference is that the new NCLB regulations going in, and they're going to reauthorize it, and in the reauthorization there's going to be changes, but that never seems to come to be. And I think that if you're looking at a trajectory that was set so far back, and the difficulty that so many schools are having at reaching that target, you can only hope that they would look at that and say, you know, there's got to be another way to show the great progress that students and schools and districts are making that isn't reflected on the AYP model.
Right.
So that's the hope, that in their sage wisdom and counsel that they will come to another way at looking at schools and tests that are reflective of the growth and the good progress that everybody's making.
Thanks, Martha. Anyone else? Ms. Bagley-Jones?
I don't know if this is a question or a comment, but I'm glad this presentation was really timely and really helpful, and you explained it very well, so that all of us, I think, understand it very well, which is great because it's a lot of material. It's great that they added the growth model, but there are no federal or state monies attached to us doing this work, correct? Other than what we get already. In other words, it's still another unfunded mandate. Yes?
Continuation of the work.
That's right. So it's all, and I'm just curious, like the hours that you all have put in to doing this data, hours and hours and hours, I would think, for all this data to have been done. And, you know, it's just maybe it's a point. Continues. So maybe it's just a point to say, again, all the work that everybody is doing in the school system that's unfunded, really, and how impressive it is. And then just to reiterate your message about this is now two measures of a student in a school and a district's success. And there's so many more measures than this. And I think we need to keep saying that message over and over again. This is important. We should have standardized testing. On the other hand, there are many other things that kids in schools do to show success. So it's a good message to get out there, I think.
Any other questions? Well, it was amazing, yes, thank you so much. And we look forward to now going forward and hearing from the individual schools about their plans of action. So thank you so much for all your time.
I'd like to thank Martha Sherman gathered all the data, and she does an incredible job on behalf of the entire district, not just the elementary English Language Arts Title I and what her title includes, but she does the K-12 data for the whole district, and she does an outstanding job above and beyond, so we appreciate all the work that she does every year, so thank you.
I think MCAS Queen might be a good term.
They have given me a crown.
Have
I don't take it out that often. But the one thing, I thank you very much for the the thanks and the accolades, but being that this is the last day of summer, it's probably the very earliest that we have presented on MCAS
it
data,
is.
and it's kind of breaking my heart that the last day of summer we're talking about.
But Martha, share that we used to get this data in December.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right,
So it comes out earlier and earlier.
right.
The responsibility to check it and look at it in July really makes it an unbelievable project. But it's all good information, and we can only get better by looking at it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, John.
These were all the same. Sorry. Ms.
Oh,
Gorman?
I'll move on now to the superintendent's self-reflection. This is, as Chairman Sheridan said, a new process, and as we were discussing this process, I said we're going to go over this, and I've passed this out, and individuals have it. I'll summarize. First, I found the self-reflection valuable for myself. I want to thank the school committee, each one of you, for your support, your guidance. You're honest with me, and I'm honest with you. And Byrne Lovely, I want to publicly recognize Byrne for his support of my superintendency when he left the committee, and welcome Mr. Cohane into his position, who's jumped right into Finance Subcommittee. And on behalf of all of you, Ms. Sheridan every single day communicates on behalf of the committee. And in the superintendent's world, that's very, very important, so thank you. I established these goals last year, and the overarching goals were approved by the school committee. The first goal is to improve student achievement and close the achievement gap for subgroups. This was not planned that the presentation would come tonight. All of it fell together. And so, Mr. Phelan, I'll skip over that, and you and Ms. Sherman took care of that. Again, student achievement drives, I referred to the Pierce achievement issue with MCAS. Improving student achievement drives our budget decisions. It drives our staffing decisions. It drives our work. We're here to improve and increase student achievement and to close all the achievement gaps. And as was referred to tonight, achievement is measured in many, many different forms. And I've listed these for you. The MCAS AYP, I've indicated to you that tonight's presentation and the handouts give you a summary of last year's achievement. I've included our SAT chart that you're very familiar with, the historical SAT chart. We have identified an issue. I've identified an issue working with John Phelan and the high school principal that, again, this will go into an area to work on. We're very, very proud that 94% of our high school students take the SATs. Our number went up from 228 to 255, but there's a drop in the SAT, the combined score. We have a resident, Dr. Arthur Doyle, who's the vice president of the College Board. He's agreed. I contacted him to come in. He wants to look at the penetration, keeping the number high statistically, if there's going to be a drop, what that drop should be. So we'll be reporting out, Dr. Drotter, John Phelan, and I will be reporting out on that. But SAT data is very, very important, and we follow that SAT data. As important to us in Milton is the number of students taking the SATs and keeping those, looking at the scores. Every student, because of the Copeland Family Foundation donation, takes the PSAT during the school day. I've also given you our advanced placement enrollment and results. And the slide that Mr. Phelan concluded with is based on AYP course offerings and scores. Our AYP offerings and this AP, excuse me, the advanced placement offerings at Milton High and the students who score 3, 4, or 5, which indicates that they then can earn college credit, remains high. We've gone from 496 tests taken last year, 2 years ago, to 546, and upheld the number of students from 49 has only gone down to 46% of the students earning 3, 4, or 5. Again, when we do our SAT and AP presentations to you, we'll tell you what's statistically significant, but to maintain that number while you increase the number of tests taken is very important, as it is in the SATs, and we've identified an issue that we're investigating and we're going to present to you. Another way, as Mr. Phelan and Ms. Sherman indicated to you, post-secondary plans we've always shared with you, and I've put another handout attached to this, the percentage of students going on to post-secondary education. Again, we maintained last year 95% of our students going on to 2-year or postgraduate study, going on to graduation rates. We have last year 98.6 of our high school students graduated. And again, that's correlated with dropout rates, but when Dr. Drotta comes, we'll explain that data to you and what the peer group that's compared against each other is. Student and staff state and national recognition awards. One of my initiatives last year was to encourage administrators to recognize our teachers and our students. And again, in the email blast, you saw demonstrated how many of our teachers and students were recognized. And as I share with the administrators, to even nominate a teacher for an award. So every opportunity that comes across my desk, I give to our administrators, and they have done an outstanding job. Grade level assessments. Again, we've made significant progress in elementary math, and at the middle and high school, creating at the high school all of the teachers who would give the honors 10th grade, who teach honors 10th grade English, work on a common mid-semester and a common final. So we work hard on common assessments, and then we correlate those assessments again to MCAS and to other indicators. That's one of the priorities of the district. Then we move from those criteria to system-wide initiatives that were implemented last year to increase student achievement. Again, I worked with the school committee, the finance subcommittee, and the school committee, and we had a Unit B, our administrators in the area of language arts, math, science, and we did a reorganization. And what drove that reorganization was to better supervise teachers and staff and to lead departments. Again, as you remember, when we filled the elementary math coordinator position, we did elementary math and technology K through 8. That proved to be a very successful model. So again, I have to tell you, the MEA and the school committee working on that reorganization, that was a long time coming, and I'm seeing the benefits of that reorganization every day in our classrooms. The Milton Foundation for Education Saturday program, Mr. Phelan and James Jett and Stephanie Nephew, that was an unbelievable initiative where children received extra time in learning. And that's what it's all about, expanding options for students to learn. The Tucker, you couldn't have seen that growth without these, again, these options we were able to implement. The before school math classes, and did you note that the turnaround in math? And I have to recognize a parent, again, I didn't recognize individuals in this self-evaluation, but Steve Shapiro, a parent, set up a Saturday program at the Tucker School. English, math, and then basketball. Again, more time on task, more learning, expanding the school day, the week, and the year. Mentoring and leadership programs, a huge thrust for us is mentoring. When NEAS comes, an additional standard they've set that Dr. Drotter is really preoccupied with is every high school student has to have a mentor in addition to their guidance counselor. And again, this comes about to be a budget issue. So we're looking creatively at other districts, and I want to tell you, James Jett, one of his accomplishments, John, how many?
Over 35.
Over 35 teachers for no extra salary are mentoring 1 to 5 students each at the Pierce Middle School. And when Mr. Jett comes, he will tell you that this mentoring program he would attribute, again, sitting down with students and discussing discussing school. Instructional initiatives, We have an emphasis on writing an open response at the elementary and middle school. The development of elementary math assessments was very successful over the last 3 years. This isn't an initiative that happens just in a year. And again, to Jeff Rubin and John Phelan, I think this is very, very important. We said at Finance Subcommittee, it's the people that work in the system, and they're to be congratulated. 97% of our students with special needs are fully included with their non-disabled peers on a daily basis. It's primarily due to the growth of the co-taught model that you've supported and the middle school team teaching approach. There are currently 11 elementary co-taught classrooms and 16 taught inclusion classrooms at PS that Mr. Phelan referred to tonight. Jeff Rubin gave me this figure. With the development of this model, more than 100 students who would have been pulled out are now serviced with their non-disabled peers in the regular classroom, hearing the regular curriculum, and then given support. And again, these initiatives, again, you've heard us talk about raising the bar. These initiatives raise the bar, and all children then succeed. I've listed, which you are familiar with because you've worked on the funding for expanding all these programs. And again, this next accomplishment is an achievement that the school committee has been integral in. The school system has created special education programs that are at a cost at all levels to meet the educational needs of all of our students with special educational needs, and the number of out-of-district placements in June of 2010 was 46, down from 54 the year before. Now, that's creating new programs that take budget dollars, but for Milton Public School parents and Milton Public School children, citizens and children of this town, they're going to school in their public schools. They're going to school with their neighborhood peers, and we're providing programs that parents have a choice, and they're choosing to stay in their public schools. Highlights, again, the highlights, we're all familiar with the special education, the MCAS support. Again, options that really serve to enrich our students, programs like the debate team, the Milton Foundation for Education. I detailed that Saturday program. The span of enrichment of PS Middle School after-school offerings are award-winning. They're unbelievable. Again, PS Middle School students can be in school now for that play, Ms. Bagley-Jones, till what time every day?
4 o'clock.
Every single day. The after-school alternative program at Milton High School, we've talked about that at this table, have kept students who might well be and have to be in private placements. They get a second chance at Milton High School, and they earn their way back into the general population, and that's our high school principal to be commended for that. And again, and another example, working with the leadership team we had at the elementary level, future problem solving was in addition to our library program. Again, working with our elementary principals, future problem solving is still the same model, but it's every other week taking one of the library classes, using those funds to restore music at the elementary level for all students. Again, it's reduced over the years to a half hour, but at no increase to the school budget. And that was, again, the leadership team working together. I've listed for you areas to strengthen in the area of student achievement. We've seen the presentation on adequate yearly progress. You understand increasing the number of students and test taking, but keeping the percentage high, or even getting higher of students who earn a 3, 4, or 5 on the test. Working to align our curriculum and working through the Common Core that Dr. Pavlicek was speaking about. Expanding our special education programs. At the same time, creating programs that challenge and our students and our athletes, and in the extracurricular area. Our professional development program, continuing to grow that program under the leadership of John Phelan, and the grade level assessments. And I've detailed a list of specifics for you, right down to the areas of technology. The next goal was to strengthen communication and build relationships. One of the charges you gave me when I was appointed superintendent. Again, working with the Milton Educators Association, I would say a renegotiated contract was a huge accomplishment for this past year. And we're having a working relationship with the union so that all grievances have been settled at the first and second level and not brought to you. Areas to strengthen, to continue those lines of communication and keep them open in the spirit of collaboration. And I've made a commitment to the school committee, and I've worked with the union that we're going to establish a committee. We have an ed line expectation in the teacher's contract. We're going to work to be sure that every teacher is meeting that union requirement and give the teachers the support. John Phelan, Matt Gillis, and I have already begun that effort, and then to improve the communication between the individual classroom teacher and the Milton Public School parent. The superintendent with parents and guardians, again, I don't want to single out certain people, but I said Kristen Bagley-Jones should have a byline on my email blast because it was one of her initiatives, and it has proven to be a very effective. I know it's long, but the feedback I get from people is I feel like I'm part of a school community. I can whip through it, and I know what's happening as a kindergarten parent at Milton High School, and I feel like I have buy-in. The PTO presentations, the school, we went out with you on budget presentations. I meet monthly with the PTO presidents. John Phelan and I and Matt Gillis presented to the boosters, and we will continue to in really streamlining the fundraising efforts of the district. And last year, I worked closely with the Special Education Pact and in developing a relationship, going to all of their meetings. And I've committed to them through this transition year that I will go with Dr. Duvall, John Phelan, and I, so that the transition into the next 2 years will be smooth. Areas to strengthen, continue the communications, encourage the principals to communicate more often with their parents and guardians. This was a request of a school committee member last year. 4 times a year, I'm going to bring the site councils together so that they find out what other site councils are doing. And again, I see the benefit of working with the PTOs on that. Continue to work with the Special Education PAC. And again, we had a meeting the other day, and when a group of parents in Milton come forward, there's a group of parents that want to introduce, they have a model from Wayland Weston that will not cost the school budget, will not tax the school budget a penny, and it's been successful in other communities, and they're going to come in front of you. Again, 2 of the members of this 7-member committee have first graders in the Milton Public Schools, and the individual they brought out from Wayland Weston started the program when his son was in first grade. And so we have parents who want to contribute to this school district, and they want to, did I make a mistake?
No.
The schools and the community, again, we work with, we have senior citizen volunteers both through Fuller Village and through a program where senior citizens are able to get a reduction on their taxes. Citizens of Diverse Milton, we meet monthly, celebrate Milton. We have a very strong relationship with Ms. Bagley-Jones and the Health Committee. We have now a partnership with the Milton Hospital that we never had before. I chair quarterly meetings with the heads of the public and parochial schools, which is of value. We know who we share, and I'm the superintendent of the Milton Public Schools, but we have things that we can offer them and give them information. We have a relationship with Curry College. Again, one of my goals was to develop strong working relationships with every group in the town hall. Again, you know, through our stay put incidents episodes last year with the Milton Police. And Bill Ritchie and I have worked for 5 years, and we have worked now with Coulter Landscaping, Driscoll Landscaping, and Eagle Farms to adopt schools, and they take care of all of the landscaping at those schools, and the Milton Foundation for Education. So again, extending the school system to the community. We want to, we worked with Mr. Huban tonight on developing a policy on communications and public relations. One of the goals for Mr. Phelan, Mr. Gillis, and I next year is to develop more relationships with local colleges and universities for our teachers and professional development. Town hall, one of my primary goals was develop a relationship with Town Hall, a working relationship with all of the people in central office, with our town administrator, our warrant committee, our town treasurer, and our town accountant, and we communicate often with them, and they've been very supportive with us. In that area, we're going to continue our commitment to work with the town on our consolidated facilities department, work with the town administrator and the warrant committee developing a FY12 budget, and I'm committed this year, now we have a new town accountant, to implement an integrated payroll and personnel system. We're giving our new town accountant 2 weeks, and we're going to have an appointment and go up there and work with Town Hall to implement the program. To work collaboratively, the third goal with the Milton School Committee to implement their policies and to advance a challenging and comprehensive preschool through grade 12 program. Again, I've often said, I don't know who thought of it, but these subcommittees that I've seen a lot of school committees over the years are very effective use of your manpower, your strengths, your interests, and on behalf of the school district, it's an outstanding model. And I've shared it with other superintendents, working with the Finance Subcommittee, Health and Wellness Subcommittee, Policy Subcommittee, Facilities Subcommittee, and Consolidated Facilities Subcommittee. It really streamlines the work of the superintendency in the school district, and you're making a contribution to a challenging and comprehensive school district through those committees. Again, the ratification of the contract, the strategic plan that we develop as a system, and every one of our site councils and schools uses our goals. Last year, we put a tremendous amount of work, as you did, support into the French Immersion Study Committee at the elementary level and the implementation. I would take a moment through the presentation. We've had a curriculum review teams that Dr. Jaffoon put in place, and we're in the midst of science, the transition, but we're going to change the model, if I could briefly digress. When I worked with Dr. Giuliano, he had an interesting model, and what he did was to get college professors who were in the area, who had expertise, who were willing to give time, perhaps some retired teachers, and and have them come in as a small NEAS group. And so John Phelan and I and the principals decided this year it's history and art that are going to be examined. We're going to start with those two and really develop, go out across the state, develop 2 small NEAS teams to come in and work with our curriculum chairs and do an evaluation of the departments while we continue through the transition of the science department head to finish the science curriculum review. So we're going to look at that model. And again, Dr. Giuliano, a prior superintendent, is going to work with us. Again, we're working hard. We worked hard last year, and we're working now, and we're going to give you updates on our coordinated program review that will happen in October and November, but this does not happen this week. This preparation is over a year. We're working last year and this year on the self-study in preparation for the 2011 NEASC visit at Milton High School, and the preparation last year into this year. Again, you heard for the work of Alan Cron and John Phelan, we are ahead of the curve on implementing. You passed, I would say, a bullying policy before most school committees, and we have professional development in place and communication for parents. Areas to strengthen, to continue to work with the subcommittees. We're going to work on school choice, which has been brought up by Mr. Huban, and have a subcommittee. Again, we're going to work more on student assignment and bring some ideas to you. The coordinated program review, the NEAS visit, the curriculum review, and the bullying. To work collaboratively, the 4th goal with the school committee to communicate the budget needs of the Milton School Committee to the community. I felt like this was a learning experience for me. I've worked with 2 business managers, very talented, and the finance subcommittee, and we have become we work hard at this every Monday morning. Again, my goal is to clearly articulate the needs of the Milton Public Schools to the community, town meeting, the warrant committee, parents, and staff, to build support out there. To build support among all the constituencies within the Milton Public Schools and those in the town. To work collaboratively with our finance subcommittee and we counted up over 30 meetings in 1 year. Again, we have to work to be fully transparent and to respond to the warrant committee, town meeting, and town hall. And again, another huge responsibility is that you charged me with was we have the Milton Foundation for Education, the Boosters, Curry College, the Copeland Family Foundation, the Outdoor Classroom, and the PTO. Those are all funders. And that is, I have to tell you, a tremendous amount of work, working with all of those funders, and again, making sure that the requests that they have with their donations, reporting back to them. And again, making annual budget presentations to PTOs, to the warrant committee, and to the staff. With the efforts in the last year of Mr. Gillis joining our team, we, as Ms. Kelly commended Mr. Mr. Gillis at the last meeting, we've made strides. And I appreciate both Mr. Phelan and Mr. Gillis's efforts. We have a team. And the monthly expenditure reports with our new administrator of finance have been positively received and keep the finance subcommittee involved. Again, Mr. Gillis worked with me that fiscal responsibility is our mantra, and every tax dollar we're responsible for, and we take that seriously. The success of the 2010 last year budget was a combination of students returning to the Milton Public Schools from out-of-district placements, unbelievable energy savings, initiatives from, again, I don't want to recognize individual people, leave anybody out, but Chairman Linda Lee Sheridan, Matt Gillis, Bill Ritchie, and all of your facilities subcommittee people, and again, the skilled work we did with the stimulus funds, again, targeting that to teachers in the classroom. And I detailed here the use of our stimulus funds and how we were able to carry the money ahead, and the stimulus funds really took the place of the circuit breaker, and how we're, every year, that's really an indicator of the circuit breaker funds we're able to carry ahead, and we had a very successful financial year in that we watched every single dollar last year, and we were very frugal with every one of the taxpayers and the donors' dollars. The athletic budget, you charged me with streamlining that. I worked with the boosters and the athletic director, Mr. Gillis and Mr. Phelan, again, that we're getting positive response. The parents are saying we've railed in all of the fundraising and targeted and worked with the boosters, and I think you could see the positive response tonight. We realize the weight of fundraising, and we want to do it in an organized fashion. Again, our expenditure reports, our restructuring of Unit B had fiscal implications that were outstanding, and the facilities subcommittee, Mr. Gillis detailed the removal of personal appliances, which is saving energy costs. Our heat and electric, he says we had a good winter and we saved. Our HVAC individual doing a lot of preventive care and changing all those bulbs in the field house. Those were huge initiatives by that committee. Again, this year working collaboratively with Town Hall to put in a fully integrated accounting system. Again, we have a Milton High School students activity account that the last 5 business managers, assistant superintendents of business was a priority, but we never restructured it, and Mr. Gillis has already started meetings, again, developing an F-12 budget. Mr. Walker asked that Ms. Kelly and I have an initial meeting with him next week, so we're starting on that already. Again, the stimulus and the jobs bills funds to be fiscally responsible and to manage those funds and to keep teachers in the classroom. And my personal goal is to eliminate student fees for all students in the Milton Public Schools for clubs and activities next year. To hire, recruit, evaluate, and supervise an outstanding leadership, instructional, and support staff. Again, personnel, the teacher in the classroom in front of the students. And we have outstanding principals who are instructional leaders. You saw Mr. Schultz tonight. Our curriculum leaders who are responsible for driving and developing curriculum to meet all these changing standards. And we have a very, very talented teaching and support staff who are dedicated to the children of the Milton Public Schools and increasing and improving their achievement. And again, I want to say that I think that Mr. Gillis's addition and Mr. Phelan's work, we've developed a team at central office, and you lead by example. And so I think in the area of personnel, we had an extraordinary year. Over the last 14 months, working with screening teams, again, another strength of the district. People mention it all the time. We've appointed, in the last 14 months, Tucker Elementary School Principal, Cunningham Elementary School Principal, Glover Elementary School Principal, K through 12 Science Director, a restructured position, PS Middle School Assistant Principal, PS Middle School Curriculum Coordinator, a restructured position, Elementary Math Coordinator, and K8 Technology Director, restructured position, and a High School Math Business and Technology Director, a restructured position. Several of those positions were open because of retirements or individuals. Again, in the principals, again, 2 of our people were appointed principals, and that is a huge change in the leadership team and an invigoration of new ideas, and that's a challenge for the district. But I think the response has been phenomenal. And again, the goal is, and again, another strength is that we recruit, we hire strong, and we have a strong mentoring program, and our new contract and our formal mentoring program. Again, to continue to build, that's a huge goal for this year, to make sure those individuals are secure and flourishing and succeeding in the Milton Public Schools, to continue to diversify our staff at every level, and to work with the screening committee to appoint a new director of pupil personnel. I believe that self-reflection, self-evaluation will be on the web.
Well,
It was an outstanding year. I want to thank you very much all for your support and for the support of the community, and thank Mr. Gillis and Mr. Phelan.
Need any oxygen, Mary?
I know. Great job, Ms. Gormley, and I know how much time even completing this self-reflection took for you. It's a very thoughtful process. It speaks volumes. I mean, I feel like there's really nothing left to say. You work tirelessly on behalf of us, and we're very lucky to have you as a superintendent. So in the next
I have to say, I'm equal to every one of our employees. I am our employees. So it's everybody in the Milton Public Schools and the support of, you saw the Milton Foundation. So this, you have to have everybody working together for the children. Thank you.
So at our next meeting, the school committee members will share their comments and about this evaluation and thoughts that we have about the work that Ms. Gormley has done.
So we shouldn't make comments now?
I think it's probably better just to hold them.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving ahead, Mr. Huban has brought up over the last 2 years whether the Milton Public Schools should enter into school choice. And so, working collaboratively last year, we're going to create a committee of administrators, teachers, parents, led by Mr. Phelan, and if we had a school committee member who wanted to volunteer to serve on that committee, and we're going to examine the pros and the cons of school choice, what districts are involved in school choice, the benefits of school choice, socially, fiscally, budget-wise, the drawbacks of school choice, and make a more educated recommendation to you. And I believe, did I say November or January?
It was November, you said, it's now January.
January. So I wanted to report out on that tonight. In the email blast, we'll be looking for volunteers, and we always get a positive response. And perhaps school committee members would like to think about it and contact Ms. Sheridan if they want to serve on that committee. Chaired by Mr. Phelan. The coordinated program review in October, we will be putting out a press release and detailing in my email blast, but The Department of Education visits school districts. They bring teams in. A tremendous amount of paperwork goes into them for them to examine before they come out for the actual site visit, when they interview administrators, parents, teachers, visit classrooms, and they're evaluating our special ed program, our practice